I was lucky enough to meet Dean Imperial, who it was a filmmaker, director of the film Caper, which was a film screening at the festival. I was lucky enough to sit down with him for an interview to talk about the film, to talk about filmmaking, to talk about other stuff. And we had about an hour-long conversation at the Austin Public Library. Who would have thought? I was so stressed out about where I was going to do these interviews. And then I remembered that the libraries just have rooms that you can go into and use. So that's what we did. I met him at the Austin Public Library. We shot for about an hour. Here's some of that interview. If you want to watch the full thing, it's going to be on the Patreon and the YouTube membership. So if you subscribe to those, you can watch our whole conversation. But here's pretty much the meat of the conversation, or what people would, what you guys would want to see. So let's take a look at that. All right, we're here at South by Southwest. I'm joined with filmmaker, writer, director, producer, actor. Yes. You're an actor?
I act too. Yeah, sometimes? Yeah. Rarely, but I do it. Yes, okay. If called upon. I have a part coming up too that I'll tell you about also. Okay. Yeah. But primarily writer, director.
Okay, Dean Imperial, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming here in the studio at the Austin Public Library. So you got this film premiere here at South by Southwest.
That's right.
Caper. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the film.
Okay, so it's a, I always say it's comedy, but we didn't make it. We wanted it to be a film first.
Sure.
We knew it would be funny. We knew, and I wanted it to be genre specific. I was like, this is a comedy, a New York City comedy. And the premise is that it's a group of guys, essentially middle age, right? They get together every Friday night, one of those things.
Yeah.
And one day one of them was missing. And as it turns out, this guy is having an affair with a woman in his office. He's going through a divorce, right? And they're having some kind of really intense relationship where they're like into some, heavy kind of sexual stuff.
Okay.
So they're sending texts back and forth, and then he accidentally sends a really, explicit text to the boss.
All right.
And it was based on two true stories, two that we kind of combined. And his life is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And he's paralyzed in his car downstairs, not knowing what to do. And he's essentially like suicidal. And his friends are like, we have to do something to help him. And they know that this woman who's his boss has a routine, and they've got 6 hours to figure out a way through people they know, people who they don't know, whatever, to try and find a way to get in and hack the message in any way, because the stakes are high, and so it's about their all-night odyssey trying to figure that.
Okay, so it's all in one night.
It's all in one night, yeah. And again, it's like it is a comedy, but when we were making it, I was like, we can't, if we don't handle the emotional stakes with honesty, the movie's going to be straight up silly.
Sure.
And it does get silly because it's a silly premise. It's like a sitcom premise, but we referenced all the time Ingmar Bergman, because I said,
really?
Well, yeah, you know why? Because the emotional stakes have to be high. And Bergman, I said, we don't have any money. I have actors and I have faces. And I need to be able to read on their faces the gravity of the situation. Otherwise, this thing isn't going to work. And I said, the comedy will come. You can't play comedy for comedy.
Right.
So even when the movie does veer off into silly, which is still anchored in some reality, at the end, the stakes are still human and real.
Yeah.
And that was our true north. So to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we rehearsed for 3.5 months.
Okay.
The actors. Because we knew we weren't going to have time, and I also knew that with our budget, and also we have 6 leads essentially, and so they kind of have to be an organism. Yeah. And I was like, so these guys we all kind of essentially knew each other, and the rehearsals were essential to get the confidence of the performances, and also just to get them their chemistry, because I was like, I want them bickering with each other a little bit, and that's what started to happen. Tension, friendship, bonding. So when we went to go shoot, it's funny, with the editor and I were looking at the footage and we were putting it together, we'd look and be like, sometimes what's happening in between the takes is identical to what's happening on screen. You know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was the thing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I run into that sometimes too. I have other co-hosts that I do this podcast with, and sometimes we'll just be talking, and we're like, we should just be doing the podcast right now. Like, what are we even like talking
Totally.
for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then it's about listening.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's
So,
listening.
was there a lot of improvising, or was it like strict?
No, I mean improvising in the sense that no, we couldn't improvise.
Okay.
I wish we could have. It would have been nice. Improvising in the sense that actors would say, "Hey, can I say this or say that?"
Yeah.
And I would almost always say, "Yeah, say that."
Uh-huh.
But most of that happened in rehearsal
Okay.
first because I said, "Look, sometimes an actor would do that when we're shooting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, if that like we have 3 takes."
Yeah.
I'm like, but I would always want to sneak it in, and I figured if the rehearsals were as aggressive as they were, you're getting your takes out of the way first. It's like I always wanted my Kubrick or Fincher, you know, I like the 20, 30 takes, you know, but we couldn't afford it, so that's what the rehearsals did.
Okay.
But the actors, I would let some of the best lines in the movie are the actors.
Okay.
And because once they're deep in the role and they know their lines, then they start getting creative.
Yeah.
So it was during rehearsals that there would be maybe sometimes a little improv,
Yeah.
and we'd go, "Can I say that?" Yes. And then when we were shooting, though, it was too tight.
Okay.
We couldn't play around with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was reading online. You started writing in 2021 the script.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was one of these things where, you know, I write for TV
Yeah.
primarily, and you know there was
Godfather of Harlem.
Godfather of Harlem is one of the shows I wrote for. Then Hotel Cocaine, and previously Imposters, and then there was a show called San Pedro that never got off the ground, but I was in the writers' room for that. And so COVID happened, and we lost a couple people that we went to college with. I graduated in 2000, and I'm 48 right now. And what happened was friends started reconnecting.
Okay.
And texting and sending photos of the people we lost, this and that, people we hadn't talked to in a while. And like, so what happened was my friend Christopher Tramontana, who essentially plays the lead of, he's our the audience's kind of entry point into everything. So it's an ensemble, but so anyway, we were talking, and like we both live in the city, and we both are still in the business, and a lot of people we knew from school like didn't continue, you know, or they, you know, were still dabbling or whatever.
Yeah.
But we were like, you know, we should get together. I mean, we haven't talked in all these years, and it was one of these things where you have a friend that you used to hang out all the time with in college, and like, you know, life just takes you certain places, and then you reconnect, and it's almost like not a second went by.
Yeah.
There wasn't even that moment of like, oh my God, man, it's so good to see you. We rolled in as if we were back in the dorm, or as if we were, you know, and we were talking, and I used to say to him, you know, so he's an actor, and he was getting typecast in a lot of these roles because he kind of has in these Mesopotamian kind of roles, because he's Italian, and he's got like this kind of, you know, Mediterranean look, and he can play all different. And he's like, God, I'm just getting typecast in these kind of roles where I'm playing like, you know, a terrorist or this and that. And I don't get. And I said, yeah, no, you need to play yourself because that's when you're really good. And he said, I know, I don't know. So he said, like, you know, I'm thinking about doing the short film if you have some time. And I'm like, well, I have time, this and that. And then the other guy, Richard Cooper, who I made a project with called Hammerhead that was at South by. It was an independent pilot, much smaller project, but we made one in 2019. And he's a guy who I've continued to work with over time because he's a producer and he became an actor. He's in the film, and he also is a writer. And so we've always worked on projects. And what happened was I was talking to him about doing something fast and cheap because I was eager to get back behind the camera. So I fused the two things. And I knew that they both had similar stories about these incidences with guys they knew and smartphones and text messages. So I just came up with this fuller plot that would incorporate them. And I said, you know what, the three of us should get together. I have a feeling. And so that was in 2021. And then what happened was, so we all started talking about it. I wrote a bunch of pages, and I included other actors that I was like, oh, well, they'd be good as a part of the chemistry. And so I literally just wrote it in their voices, and I wrote like 10 pages, and I got a rehearsal space, got everybody together, and we read through these initial pages. And then, you know, I got a job, and we had to put it away. And then Chris got a job, and then I'd work on it with Richard Cooper, and then Chris would read it, and I took command of the script.
Yeah.
And then I put them together at a time when I was working, and so we just organically did it over, but there were gaps in between, which was helpful. So yeah, it started in 2021, and by summer of 2023, it was pretty much where it needed to be. And then the strike happened, which opened the door for me to have the time to, to be able to work on it, because it was a low enough budget, certainly at the beginning, where we fit within the waivers.
Okay.
So we weren't breaking rules.
Okay. And so Christopher was the one who sent the dick pic?
No, he didn't send the dick pic. It was a guy he knew that we went to college with, and I can't name who it is. Who he accidentally sent a text to his girlfriend, which was with another woman that he was clearly with, and they didn't live together. She lived with roommates, and he tried to get in. He got in and tried to get the phone, got caught. It was bad. And then the other situation was, and I don't reveal too much, but Rich Cooper knows a group of people in recovery, and they take care of each other, and they're all different ages. And one of them, again, a similar situation, sent to his fiance by accident, and it was meant for another girl, right? And it was straight up dick pic, and it made no sense that it would go to her, and she was living with her parents at the time in a nice building. And so when you're on the edge like that, if you're in like recovery or whatever, it's like very fragile. And then he was doing well, and his whole life was going to fall apart. And so the guys band together, and a lot of the things that happened in the movie happened. And but what happened in the end, they failed.
Sure.
But that relationship was recovered. Thankfully.
They failed in real life, not in the movie.
They failed in real life.
Well,
you see the movie. I'm not going to say anything about the movie yet.
You have to see the movie.
You have to see the movie and see where we took it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to reveal what's really happened, what didn't happen.
Right.
But it was enough there where you'd go, wow, like that actually happened, And I'm like, yeah, because the vulnerability and the desperation is real. We had our premiere last night, and we sold out. It was great. And we were having a very aggressive ground game, getting posters everywhere, flyers everywhere.
I was walking through the convention center earlier, and I saw a bunch of your posters. So.
Yeah, because the idea is we don't have any stars.
Yeah.
So we have to get it in we have lawn signs and things, and because I said for the investment, like if we're all going out here, I had said like we need a ground game early, because somebody's going to take one of these teams. And I said, so we need to be smart, and we need to get this team. And we've got a guy who's doing a terrific job, just papering it everywhere. And I said, we got to, you know what, we've got to do everything we possibly can to get people into the seats at the very least. Because it's a hard sell when there's no name in it.
Sure. Yeah.
So far the festival's great, but I mean, I'm here for another 5 days.
Okay.
So let's see how the rest of it goes.
Yeah. So can you talk a bit about like getting the funding for the film and like how that whole process went?
So we had the financing at first because Richard Cooper, who invested in Hammerhead, who's also in the film, he was able to finance that whole project. Which was great.
Yeah.
So, and people who invest in things, it's like, there's ebb and flow. And, so at first it seemed like, okay, he might be able to cover it all. And then as time went on, we got closer. It was like, well, he said, it's a little tougher than I thought. I'll be able to put in some. So we were like, okay, well, we need at least, talking figures, is that right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, we need at least 170 to pull this thing off on some level. Okay?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I can't get that. So I had already cast, I call her an actress. She's more than an actress, but she's more like this. This is as New York City as you can get. Okay. When I graduated college, I became a stand-up comic first, but before that, somebody recommended I go to an acting teacher, a private teacher who would teach and coach, like name people, but you had to audition to be in. So I went to this class, and I met this woman, Ann Klaus, and we became friends instantly. And she was a stand-up comic also, which is one of the reasons why I got into it. And she started this little improv group in her apartment on 34th Street in Manhattan. And she'd bring all different types of people and we would improvise. And there were some of them were writers, some of them were actors, some of them were comedians. And it would be like 5 or 6 people every week. I think it started on Tuesdays. And anyway, we would do that. And over time, like, you know, we developed all these relationships. And so she was cast in the film, and she had always wanted to invest in something for this group of people. But I didn't think to ask her, you know. And then my significant other, Tessa, my girlfriend, who was also, I met her in this woman's group, improv group, and she's very close with Anne, you know. She said, well, maybe Anne wants to do it, and maybe I'll produce it, because I know Anne's not going to get into the nitty gritty. So she was able to cover the first chunk of money. Then, of course, as we got Andy Zollett, our producer, was working at a soundstage, and things were slow because it was the strike. So we were able to use that space in Long Island City as an office, Long Island City, New York. And the space itself, which is run by a fellow named Joe White, he was seeing clients still that were doing like a lot of car commercials and things in there. But he said, well, you should make this your office, because you know, it'll be good for things to be going on. And it was cool. So, but once that started and you start adding, like, you know, you get your DP, you bring in another producer, you say this, the price starts going up. So we started getting investments from and the whole time we're rehearsing. So actors were then putting in a little money here and putting a little money there and this and that. And then a company named Nevision, who we knew through one of the actors, Ace James, had taken an interest in our independent pilot Hammerhead years ago, and was interested in seeing if they could get it off the ground or what have you. But then they read this script they were like, what are you doing? And we sent them the script, and they were like, so they invested in it and pretty much doubled the budget.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So all of a sudden we were at, like, you know, 4 or something. You know, and then we were able to finish the movie on that, and then when we got into post, we had some money to spend. And then even then, I mean, just the money just keeps going up and up and up. But we got to $550. You know, and we shot it in 15 days.
Damn.
Yeah, but I mean, I love stand up, and I mean, I don't go see it much anymore now, because it's like once you lived it and then you do it, it's like. But I still will watch the classic stuff. Like, I love all the old Richard Pryor films, you know, and I will watch Seinfeld. I love his work.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the show, and so that's sort of what got me into, like, TV and stand-up, I guess, as a kid. Was I just loved the show.
Well, you know, it's funny. One of the things that I have to send you I'll send you the film. Because we just had a review, and they called it Eyes Wide Shut meets Curb Your Enthusiasm. And one of the actors in it, Richard Cooper, they keep referring to him as a Seinfeld. There's something very Seinfeld about the film, you know, and and so it was a big influence. So it's like this combination of, like, you know, a kind of hard-edged cinematic approach and Seinfeld, you know.
There was that episode where George tried to break into the girl's apartment.
That's right. And I had forgotten that episode. I had totally forgotten that episode, but it was as we were writing. And is that the one that ends with, he goes in and he gets caught, right?
Yes.
And is it the one that ends with him and the rye bread? Like what's the one that ends with him and the fishing pole and the rye bread out the window? I don't know why I associated those two.
I don't remember that.
Okay, it doesn't matter. But yeah, no, somebody mentioned that. And then somebody mentioned, which was one of the other influences for real, which was in Sideways, when Paul Giamatti runs back in to get he actually breaks into the people's house to get the wallet for Thomas Hayden Church, because he was sleeping with that waitress, and he had to crawl in and break in. So that, but there's something very Seinfeld about the movie. So I love the show. This is fantastic.
Thanks for doing it.
I love this. Absolutely. This is a real pleasure.
Distribution, are you guys working on that, or is that?
Definitely work on it. I'm with CAA, and they're coming tomorrow to the screening, and we have a great publicist, Lee Meltzer, and we're working on it. It's tough without any names. Very low budget and no names. So it's a tough sell, you know. But we'll figure it out. To me, it's always the building block. I'm hoping this one helps make the next one.
Sure.
You know, but not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. Well, guys, make sure to follow Dean wherever.
you.
I'll link below, and then people can follow
Terrific.
you and stay tuned and see.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
It's my pleasure, man. This was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Thanks, Joe.
That was a riveting conversation, truly. Like, I learned so much about filmmaking and suicide and all of that from this conversation. So, yeah, if I don't know what the future is going to be for Caper, but if it comes out and you're able to see it, you should definitely see it. I still haven't seen it, which you know, it's fine. I tried to go to the premiere. Look, here's a fun story. I tried to get to the premiere, and I was running a bit late. And when I got there, they told me that it was all filled to the brim. And I said, no, you don't understand. The director, he saved me a ticket. He told me that I can come. And they said, fuck off, kid. This is for only us. And so I had to fuck off after that. They didn't actually say that, but it just makes for a better story. I didn't see the film, but I will see it, and I will give my honest opinion at it at some point.
Out of the #1 Metro Comedy Podcast, no big deal.